What's up, Taiwan? I'm Rik Glauert with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The destruction caused by Super Typhoon Kong-rey can still be seen across Taiwan, with roads blocked off and farmers grappling with serious agricultural losses. Cadence Quaranta reports.
Across Taiwan, a trail of destruction after Super Typhoon Kong-rey ripped through the country, leaving 6 people dead and nearly 700 injured. In the East Coast county of Yilan, rock slides have blocked off mountain roads and damaged highways, with some parts collapsing. Strong winds and rains have also damaged over 23 hectares of crops in the region, hurting the supply of staple foods like cabbage and garlic. Taiwan as a whole suffered over $6 million in agricultural losses. In Taitung County, also on the East Coast, sugar apple orchards were damaged, with some trees blowing over completely. And around 70 to 80% of navel orange crops, which are harvested only once a year, are gone. And on Taiwan's west coast, oyster farmers suffered losses of over $2 million. Some tried to save the floating rafts used to farm oysters, but large waves meant most were destroyed, their remnants now scattered across the shore. Taiwan's leaders, including President Lai Ching-te, are visiting affected areas, including the East Coast counties of Yilan, Taitung, and Hualien, along with outlying Orchid Island. President Lai said he's proposing to increase next year's flood control budget to $1.7 billion. And as repairs get underway, there is some good news. 2 East Coast train lines suspended in the storm are back up and running. But for many who lost crops or income, the destruction wrought by Super Typhoon Kong-rey will continue to be felt for some time. Patrick Chen and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Photos of Taiwanese military personnel training to use the HIMARS rocket artillery system at a US Army base have stirred concerns about information security. The photos were shared on Facebook back in August and caught the attention of Chinese netizens. They show Taiwanese troops training with US soldiers on the advanced mobile rocket system. In some photos, their faces and name patches are clearly visible. Defense Minister Wynton has responded to the concerns.
购买海马斯本来就是一个公开的资讯嘛，所以它相关揭露的这些姓名，因为是属于这一个一般性的训练，没有揭露其他进一步个人的个资，我想还好。不过我们还是会向美方反映。
Taiwan has purchased 29 HIMARS systems and expects the deliveries to be completed by the end of 2026. Taiwan's economy ministry says machine tools are no longer being sent to Russia, and that it has been complying with international sanctions since March. The ministry was responding to an October report from a British think tank, which said that Taiwanese machine tools were still being found in Russia's supply chain. Such exports have been sanctioned because they can be used to make artillery used in Russia's war on Ukraine. The economy ministry says it's increasing the fine for violations of its export ban to more than $30,000. North Korea test-fired its first intercontinental ballistic missile in almost a year this week. The Hwasong-19 traveled over 1,000 kilometers and was a show of Pyongyang's growing capabilities. It comes in the final week before the US elections. To learn more about the missile test and what it means for geopolitics, Adil Bra spoke to Edward Howell, a lecturer at Oxford University.
What's the significance of this particular ICBM test by North Korea?
This test is significant because it marks a clear advancement in North Korea's technology. The ICBM flew for 86 minutes, which is the longest flight time hitherto seen. And it's also useful since it gives a diversionary tactic away from the global attention on North Korean troops being sent to Russia. So we don't know whether Russia had supplied any technology for this particular missile.
What does this latest test show about advancements in Pyongyang's missile delivery technology?
The missile was a solid fuel ICBM. They're harder to detect and easier to maneuver than their liquid fuel counterparts. And because the missile flew for longer in the air, we can say with reasonable confidence that it shows that North Korea's missile capabilities are certainly improving over time.
Could North Korea resume nuclear testing that has been stalled since 2017 ahead of the US elections? If so, what would be the impact?
So, seeing heightened North Korean provocations in a US election year really isn't that surprising. But secondly, what makes 2024 particularly concerning is that the UN Security Council is impotent given North Korea's relationship with Russia. And so if North Korea were to conduct a seventh nuclear test, it would be able to do so and largely escape without any form of punishment or consequence, not least from the UN Security Council.
That was Edward Howell of Oxford University on North Korea's recent ICBM launch. The European Union has signed a new defence agreement with Japan as the bloc seeks to step up its presence in Asia. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell and his Japanese counterpart Iwaya Takeshi announced the pact, which will see closer military cooperation. Borrell says this is the first agreement of its kind between the EU and Japan. It comes as China increases military activity around Japan and other countries in the region. The EU increasingly views China as a threat to regional stability. Women's rights groups are speaking out against a government plan to increase fines for what Taiwan considers illegal abortions. A new proposal from the Justice Ministry would see women fined $2,500 for breaking the abortion law. That's more than 20 times the current fine. Abortion is illegal after the 24th week of pregnancy in most cases in Taiwan. Women groups have hit back at the proposal, saying it infringes on women's rights. They have started a petition to decriminalize abortion in Taiwan. The US has one of the highest rates of gun violence in the developed world, and with only a few days before the country goes to the polls, the issue of gun control is on many voters' minds. Leslie Liao traveled to the US to find out how some Asian American voters are weighing in on the conversation.
In a small suburb of northeast Los Angeles, home to a large portion of Los Angeles County's Asian population, is gun shop Arcadia Firearm and Safety. Owner David Liu was born in Taiwan, where guns are strictly controlled. But he had the rare opportunity to grow up around firearms.
My parents never stopped me from learning about firearms. My mom was in the Taipei shooting team when she was young. She was the team captain. And so I always get in touch with airsoft and BB guns.
Liu moved to the U.S. as a teenager after spending his childhood in Hong Kong. He's fluent in both Mandarin and Cantonese, able to have in-depth conversations with Chinese-speaking clients about gun ownership. He holds classes and seminars with the community to help educate those interested in owning guns.
We find a lot of new immigrants and Chinese have a lot of misunderstanding about firearms, and they have problem getting the proper channel and knowledge.
Gun control is a hot topic in America, particularly in the lead up to the presidential election. The U.S. has one of the highest rates of gun violence among developed countries, and there are frequently calls for laws restricting gun ownership. Gun violence is increasingly impacting the Asian American community in the U.S. Data from the country's Centers for Disease Control shows that Asian American gun deaths rose steadily between 2018 and 2022. According to the Pew Research Center, around 6 in 10 U.S. adults favor stricter gun laws. Some camps say restrictions on gun ownership is a violation of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees citizens the right to bear arms. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris says she supports the Second Amendment, but would also implement stronger gun control measures, such as a ban on assault weapons and stricter universal background checks when buying guns. Republican candidate Donald Trump, on the other hand, says that Harris's proposals would destroy Second Amendment rights, hinting that he'd have a more relaxed policy on guns. For Liu, gun control should come in the form of encouraging responsible ownership rather than flat-out restrictions on firearms.
To me, the proper gun control is education, using a firearm. And background check, we should have background check. People should be checked. Some people should never have guns. That's a way of controlling the gun.
Over in Texas, viewed as one of the most gun-friendly states in the U.S., nonprofit Asian Texans for Justice's 2024 data polling found that gun safety is a big priority for Asian Americans.
Universally, we all agree about having, common sense gun safety laws like background checks, gun storage laws, taking, the required safety classes with gun ownership. And that is something that is really important to our community.
On the eve of the U.S. presidential election, conversations around gun control and gun ownership are in the spotlight. And it's a conversation some Asian Americans are looking to get in on. Devin Tsai, Jeremy Olivier, and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
2 decades after his last performance in Taipei, Grammy award-winning musician Wynton Marsalis has returned to Taiwan with the world-renowned Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. While here, they're meeting with young musicians and performing an eclectic range of jazz subgenres for the country's music lovers. Wesley Lewis reports.
Performing Dixieland, Duke Ellington, bebop, and everything in between, the world-class Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra is in Taiwan. On their week-long visit, the New York City-based band is scheduled to swing by Taipei and Taichung. Leading the ensemble is Grammy Award-winning trumpeter and composer Wynton Marsalis, one of modern jazz's leading figures. Ahead of their opening performance, the group held a welcome event where music students were invited to pick the performers' brains. There, Marsalis imparted some wisdom to aspiring musicians.
First, play. Really learn how to play. Develop your feeling. So when people come to hear you and your music, it makes them feel a certain way. Then they tell their friends, oh, you got to go hear so-and-so. Check this out. Then other things come later, like publicity and posting things or putting out recordings and all of this. People get excited about that, but do the quality first.
Born in New Orleans into a family of prominent jazz musicians, Marsalis has spent his career dedicated to promoting the genre. He helped start jazz at Lincoln Center over 3 decades ago and has performed and given lectures around the world. The last time the orchestra came to Taiwan was in 2002, where they gave one performance at the National Music Hall in Taipei.
I was fortunate to be here 22 years ago also. When we came, that was my second year in the orchestra 22 years ago, and had such fond memories of Taiwan and being here. And so it's an absolute pleasure for us to be here. We just remember how warmly we were received back then, and it's the same thing that's happening right now.
Now back at the same venue over 2 decades later, Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra are once more inviting audiences in Taiwan to fall in love with the electrifying rhythms in their arrangements, continuing their mission to spread jazz to a global audience. Fu Huahong, Kama Xu, and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, feel the rhythm with these images of the World Salsa Festival in Cali, Colombia. I'm Rik Glauert. Take care, and we will see you next time.